Ahead with the further proceedings. Next up, we have a panel discussion, and it's about the National Cybersecurity Framework for Renewable Energy Sector. And into that, our moderator will be Mr. Akshay Tiku, Partner Cybersecurity EY India. So I request him to please kindly come on a stage. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And into this panel discussion, I request Mr. Shailesh Kumar Gupta, ED F&A IT CISO Solar Energy Corporation of India Limited, to please kindly come on our stage. Can we have a big round of applause, everyone? Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Krishna Kumar, Scientist, CERT in Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India. Okay, here we have. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for such a great applause from your side, everyone. Next up, we have Mr. Purnendu Chaubey, Senior VP, Strategic Business Development and Policy Affairs, Renew. Thank you very much. Next up, we have Mr. Sambit Sinha, Partner, Grant Thornton, Bharat LLP. Next up, we have Mr. Manas Sarkar, Senior Cybersecurity Auditor, Cyber Manthan Center, Triple IT, Hyderabad. So they will talk about the National Cybersecurity Framework for Renewable Energy Sector. So I request Mr. Akshay to please kindly go ahead with the further proceedings. So can we have a big round of applause, everyone, to cheer up? Thank you very much. Here we go.
Good morning, everyone. I still believe we are in the morning hour, right? Good afternoon. So just missed the good morning. So, exciting discussion, exciting sessions we had in the first half, a brilliant start. We got to know about, the importance. Of course, most of the people who are present here already know the kind of leaps and bounds in which renewable energy is growing and will continue to grow in this country. We also got to know about the threats, the intricacies of IT, OT, interconnectivity, the importance of trust, and most importantly also the regulatory aspect of it. Thank you so much for all the speakers before us. And we will try and take it forward from there. And the topic of discussion is the National Cybersecurity Framework for Renewable Sector. And that in itself is one of the key aspects which probably in a lot of organizations or in a lot of geographies drives not just from a compliance perspective, because compliance is basically an end result of leading practices being adopted. So I say that this is about driving those leading practices to be adopted. And that's where we start our discussion. We have an esteemed set of panelists here, and I have about 150 odd questions, but I don't think I'll be able to ask all of them. But we'll start and we'll see what I can do, and justice to the time. Thank you so much once again, all of you, for being here. So my first question, goes to Shri Shailesh ji. Shailesh ji, as a CISO of SECI, right? Let's elaborate to the audience present here, and you also, SECI is also the, the nodal agency for, for renewables. So let's elaborate on what are the existing requirements around cybersecurity that an organization in the renewable energy sector, needs to comply with. Let's look at the compliance load and let's see how we are going from there. So to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Akshay. Very good morning to all of you. It's a great opportunity and very privileged. I am here and I would like to really very great for you, all of you. Very good morning to all of you. The question is very relevant, what is the present regulatory framework. So we talk about in the background, there have been some CA guidelines, as you are aware, of cybersecurity in power sector in 2021. Which were regulating some kind of the requirement of cybersecurity on the power sector. Recently, further, the government is taking further more efforts, and some regulations on this cybersecurity in power sector are again being notified very shortly now. So there will be, earlier it was in the shape of guidelines, where there was a kind of voluntary, kind of some sort of requirements, but now it become a mandatory requirement for every company in power sector to make the compliance of this cybersecurity guidelines. Secondly, we can say the regulatory framework was that the CERT-In directions. There is a body, a central government body, CERT-In, where they have been mandated for the compliance of various CERT-related issues, and every company, every person, whosoever has CERT, cybersecurity-related issues, everything has to be reported as per their particular timelines. They have to keep within the stipulated timelines, log retentions for 180 days, some kind of time synchronization, and secure configuration systems. That was the directions from CERT-In in April 22. Further, in the background, there has been an IT Act 2000 also and amendments, which says the compliance and provisions of various protection of critical information, infrastructure, and prevention of cyber incidents. There has been, we recently, SECI, Solar Energy Corporation of India, a central PSU, has been mandated for this sectoral CERT responsibilities, RE sector ke liye. There is CSERT power. Now CSERT power was having all the issues now, but we have been given the RE entity, we have been given separate mandate by the ministry. We have been in touch with the various RE power developers also. We have been writing them, we are seeking database, we are doing many things here, and we hope now, regulation which is coming very shortly now, this has to be complied with, and our role will become more now. And our role will be basically the kind of awareness, the coordination, advisories, compliance monitoring, and incident reporting for RE entities. That will be our role. The data protection and digital governance requirement, compliance with the GOI digital governance norm, data confidentiality, system hardening, access control, audit requirement coming from time to time. These have been basically a regulatory framework in the background. So now I request that all RE entities should come forward. The requirement, whatever we SECI as an entity, we are seeking information. We are having online meetings with them. Please come forward. If any issues are there, we'll discuss in person and then try to comply all the requirements. Because once the regulation notified, there will be no further kind of backdrop. We have to do everything compliance as per the regulatory framework only. That's from my side.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I audible? I am audible otherwise, I guess. To the back, I just want to be fair to the people at the back. And can you, somebody just check the mic as well? So thank you, Shailesh ji, for that, well-rounded this thing on the broad line regulations that you have, that an organization in the RE sector has to comply with. But more importantly, your role as, the nodal agency for cybersecurity in renewable energy, guiding them, doing the consulting process, and also ensuring compliance going forward, and all of that will come under the bill. I think your role in itself will be paramount to ensuring cybersecurity within the renewable energy sector.
One point I want to further add, we are recently developing one portal also, RECAP portal, that will assess the cybersecurity compliance status of all the RE entities. That will come out very shortly now. We are in the development stage. That portal will help to understand each RE entities, what is the level of compliance of in that. They have to feed all the data in that portal.
Great initiative there. So Krishna sir, moving on to, sir also mentioned about CERT-In, and we've been talking about the draft CA regulation which is there, and Mr. Singh gave us some insight into it this morning as well. So as a representative of CERT-In, could you highlight the key aspects of this regulatory requirements and how it aims to improve adoption of cybersecurity within the country? Also, just to add there, are there any specific call out or support which is offered for renewable energy sector specifically?
Yeah, actually, the CEA that we have, CEA in regulations in power sector. Initially, that guidelines actually released sometime in 2021. That's having most of the cybersecurity requirements that each and every utility has to adhere. And that is given some small framework for, it's a groundwork for the regulation that is going to maybe released maybe most probably in January or February of 2026. And it's having all the regulation having all the cybersecurity requirements that can have a reasonable security practices each and every organization in the power sector need to have. So main thing is, one is they should have a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, and it should not be on additional capacity. It should be having a CISO should be of dedicated work. they should be ring-fenced with the cybersecurity activities only. And they have to, and a CISO has, and what are the functions a CISO has to follow, that and all, that is there in that MIT website, Ministry of IT website. They have released, I think, 2018 or 20, something like that. All the, what are the functions or they have to, each and every CISO has to perform. That is detailed in that document. And other than this, so a CISO will be the person who interact with the regulator, maybe CSET power or CERT-In, for any cybersecurity activities. So he has to spearhead all the cybersecurity activities inside the organization, and they have to coordinate with the outside world. That's the first point of key aspect of this regulation. And there are some other issues, like they have each and every organization utility in the power sector, they have to create a cyber crisis management plan. CCMP plan is there. So whenever some crisis happen in their organization, what they have to do? They should have a clear-cut plan. They should create a clear-cut document, detailed document, at what time they have to do, what step, to whom they have to contact in case of a cyber crisis. All these things should be detailed, and they have to get it verified by CSET power, and finally with the CERT-In, whether they should actually covering all the aspects of these cybersecurity activities they have to do. And other than this one, there are some data retention plans, there are logs management, what they have to. Otherwise also in certain directions also saying that they have to mandatorily, each and every organization mandatorily enable the logs. They should have the logs for, relevant logs for all the ICT device, ICT systems in their organization. They should have, say, firewall logs and all, they should have minimum 180 days. We are seeing that even after all these things we have given, this CEA also, directions also there, still some of the organizations don't, they are just complying only on the paper. When we are going there, no, firewall logs, they are having only one day log. With that we cannot do anything. On the fly they are analyzing something, they are not able to find out which is the attack and all those things. So this will actually, this regulation, when it is implemented, everything will be fall into place so that all this can be done. And some sensitive data, if your organization is using that one, then that should be in the encrypted form. If you are transmitting or if you are keeping it in your system, then it should be of encrypted form and should be in India only. And all the internet facing systems, web application or APIs, whatever you are using, that should be first of all, before deploying, it should be cybersecurity audit need to be, that clearance should be there. Then there are some aspects like they have to train their employees, all those day-to-day operation they are doing in the IT or OT as well. They have to strictly undergo some cybersecurity training, some programs. These things they have to do. And other than this one, they have to, that it should be ensured to do the tabletop, mock drill, that exercises and all, different exercises, so that they will get to know through drills only, cybersecurity drills only, they will get to know that where they are, what are the things, where they are standing, what they are lacking, and on the basis of the lesson learned, they can actually increase the, enhance the cybersecurity of security posture of the organization. These are the main key aspects of this one. If all these things need to, if regulations, if the organizations are adherent to all these regulations, then maybe they are reasonably secure against cyber attacks. This is what.
Well, interesting. So it is, of course, we've all read the guidelines and the draft regulation. It's an all-encompassing, as you mentioned, but I think, of course, with requirement of independent audits, risk assessment, specific sections on OT. But I think the most important takeaway that you mentioned in the beginning was, and probably that's the support that you've given to these organizations, is calling out for a ring-fence CISO. A dedicated ring-fence CISO required to kind of drive cybersecurity within the organization. That kind of gives the seriousness also of the initiative and, of course, the time, bandwidth, and all the resources, etc. Great, thanks, Krishna sir. So, moving on to Purnendu ji, sir, as a member of the organization, Renew that needs to comply to the regulations, would like to hear your perspective, on the need of standardization across, all the regulations, all the cybersecurity related requirements, and in general, other aspects to build a robust cybersecurity framework, especially for, let's speak for all renewable energy companies in India at that phase.
Yeah, thanks Akshay. Thanks for this opportunity. And I'll talk about the sector in general. Means 4 or 5 years back, I think we've not been having this kind of confidence, right? Because there was not much awareness or sensitivity towards cybersecurity at that point of time. In fact, 21, 23, those minor attacks on that load dispatch centers, that created a bit of fear or panic towards cybersecurity robustness. But, and 21, CA came out with their first advisory or guidelines, right? Now, everything in renewable energy, if you talk, means wind, solar, hybrid, everything is digital, connected, right? If something happens at one place, it's having cascading effect at other places. And gradually, when we became big, now we are more than half of the installed capacity in the country. And when we became big, there are a lot of challenges. Means, with the growth, there is a lot of responsibility that also came on the sector, right? Now, in this framework, every company, we know that means if something happens to my plant, the grid might be in trouble, right? There is a lot of IT, OT related stuff that needs to be fully secured. Otherwise, it can have effect everywhere, right? There are rooftop solar, which is having a lot of consumer data, right? So that data trust, privacy of data, all those things come into picture, right? Smart meters is having the data of the individual. So, if you look at the regulatory side, so I'll just cite you 2-3 incidences. Or we wrote Electricity Act in 2003, and there was not any discussion on the cybersecurity at that point of time. But when we wrote this draft amendment bill for Electricity Act, there is a whole chapter on cybersecurity at this point of time. And they have mandated CEA to come for making all the draft regulations. They have set the requirement of audit, compliance, penalties for the, including REs. So there is a shift in the mindset of the policymakers also that cybersecurity is something which is very, very important. I am also the president of the Wind IPP Association. So I'll talk you two incidents of wind industry. All the wind turbines which are operating on the border areas, they have been asked to give their SCADA control to Indian Air Force so that they can have the control on their wind turbines in case of any emergency. So those kind of sensitive, this is something which they are doing very, very diligently, and all the developers have been asked to abide by this. Second, for the wind industry, there was an approved list of wind turbine manufacturers, which is normally released by NIWE, National Institute of Wind Energy. And this time, when they came out with their approved list, so there was a mandatory requirement to have your data centers in India, right? And you are not allowed to take your real-time data outside India. And because if you look at the RE sector, it's very much OEM dependent, right? And any cybersecurity step that you are taking has to be in close collaboration with OEM, right? My inverter manufacturer, my that SCADA system operator, everything is OEM dependent, right? The WTG manufacturer. Now, with respect to SCADA, I think our SCADA system is more prone to these kind of threats because historically we have awarded all our SCADA system on L1 basis to most of the operators from our neighboring country. And I think it's the time that we should take recourse and right recourse and remedial measures to safeguard our SCADA system. Net, I think then NCIPC that they declared Renewable as a very critical infrastructure, and they mandated them to go abide by all those cybersecurity regulations, etc. So if I tell you honestly, 3-4 years back we were not ready for it, right? Means for those kind of because everything asked for money, right? Means, and in renewable energy we are already bidding, building plants at a cutthroat margin, right? You might be hearing the stories of 2 rupees 20 paisa, 30 paisa solar, and 3 rupees, but now market is very, very cost competitive. This is something which is an extra burden on developers, right? Means we have to have the right kind of infrastructure with certain that CERT requirements. We have to have cybersecurity experts and all those regulations, systems in place, which calls for money. But anyway, since it's some regulation, and as you said, that CA is coming out with their final regulation, it's going to be released in January, and they are giving 6 months time to the developers or engaged in the sector to abide by those regulations. They don't have any choice, they have to abide by it. And this is something which is required also. We think that this is the need of the hour. We can't keep ourselves prone to these kind of threats, right? And we as Renew in my company, we already have a very large team. Asim, who is in the next panel, he is driving that cybersecurity efforts that we are doing for within the company. And in fact, we have started doing this initiative around a year back. A lot of exercises, audits of our existing setup, and how can it be endangered. In fact, integrating this with our 150, 60 odd sites. So all those things are getting shape, and hopefully, not only Renew, I think most of the developers, they would be abiding by these CA regulations which are going to come in January. In fact, we are aware of their requirements, what kind of compliances, audit requirements, incident reporting, and all that stuff that they are talking about. At this point of time, we are struggling with it. Honestly, the SECI, which is the nodal agency for our industry, he gets a message from CERT or CA, he forwarded it to us. We still believe that it's just an advisory. Maybe once the regulation will come, then we'll be more serious. But now I think it's time to be serious for all the developers, for all the RE fraternity.
Yeah, thank you. And there's a saying, if you think compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. So, imagine by non-compliance, if your systems get attacked and what happens to the grid. Forget about the individual plant. We're talking about something which is connected to the national grid, and that's like national security. So as I said, if compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. You'll get to know. Thank you so much. It was very exciting, and a lot of insights that came through. Moving on, with so much rough requirement around cybersecurity, improving the resilience, the entire posture, all the frameworks and the regulatory aspects which are asking us and mandating that rather to build that in place. Moving to Sambit, as a OT security leader, do you feel the need of the national cybersecurity framework, created specifically for the renewable energy sector in India? Or do you believe that, the overall power sector guidelines will be sufficient? Or there are some specific things that comes from the renewable energy sector? So are basically asking the draft regulations, are they sufficient or a step in the right direction of the journey of cybersecurity?
Thank you, Akshay. Thank you for this opportunity. So, the 2021 guidelines that were released was a very, very welcome step and a path-breaking step, I must say. But if we look at the renewable sector as a subsector within the power sector, they definitely need a separate separate annexure in the cybersecurity guidelines for themselves. And I'll tell you the reason behind it. Power sector, as we traditionally know, is largely in the conventional sector. But today, renewable contributes 50%. You just mentioned, right? It's about 234, 235 out of 500 overall. So it contributes about 50%. That's one element of it. So it is sufficiently important for the country to be looked at separately. That's one. The other reason I would say is, unlike the conventional sector, conventional energy generation, the renewable energy is geographically dispersed. You do not have one single perimeter in which the power is getting generated with the ash handling, coal handling, all of that together. No, it's not. It is geographically dispersed in solar, in wind, whichever way you look at, they are all geographically dispersed. One. Two, they are digitally connected native. They were not air-gapped earlier, and then you're trying to connect on IT/OT network today. They are digitally connected native today. And there is no perimeter. The perimeter is in the cloud. So essentially, all of these are attack surfaces that are prone to dangers. Now, if you look at the equipment as such in the renewable sector, and having worked in this sector for several years now as a firm, we've seen the nature of the beast is a little different. You know, unlike a DCS system and a couple of PLCs running, here the systems that are getting managed and monitored are largely inverters, storage systems, the DER systems, so on and so forth, right? So they are a little different from the conventional systems. It is not that you put up a DCS system, air gap it, power it up, and the power starts generated. Power is getting generated. No, it is not. You have to connect, and they are digitally controlled, they are remote controlled. In the other case, we would say remove remote control as much as possible. But in this case, you need remote control to run because they are so geographically dispersed. So there are specific requirements in the renewable sector that need to be addressed. While I would say that, you know, I could go on and on, but the point I'm trying to stress is that while the 2021 guidelines were excellent to start with, the draft 24 guidelines also very, very comprehensive. I would be happy if there are two things that are there. One is if there is a separate annexure on the renewable sector, which adds to the focus on the renewable sector. That's one. Two is the point that Purnendu mentioned, that you have a lot of OEMs from neighboring countries, but you have a lot of OEMs within India as well. Now, the supply chain security element of each of those components need to be tested. Do we have a test bed? There is some provision in the regulation which calls for some sort of a approval or a nod from the regulator in terms of installing particular OEMs. But if we have a central test bed, at least to test some of these, because it is so critical for the overall country's growth today, that if we have a test bed which tests the highly distributed OT setup or OT OEMs, that would be a welcome step. So these are two things that I would suggest.
Thanks, Sambit. Thanks, Sambit, for the insights. Moving on, because I also have to look at the interest of time and the remaining 143 questions that I still have. So, so Manas, as a senior cybersecurity auditor, or rather as a seasoned cybersecurity auditor, I would say, and an expert on cybersecurity standards and regulations. I've seen a lot of publications also that you've done on regulations on cybersecurity. What is your view on the standards and regulations adopted or being adopted or are already in the fray for India against prevalent leading practices for the renewable energy sector globally? So where do we stand from a very global perspective, if I may call it?
Thank you, Mr. Akshay. And I would also like to thank you. Am I audible? I would also like to thank you, the organizer, for giving me this opportunity to share my insight on this important topic of national level framework for renewable energy. So coming to the question, I would like to answer it with 3 points. The first point is India is now new India. We are not dependent on IPC, we have our own BNS. Globally, people are talking about DPDP along with GDPR and HIPAA. So India has like moved towards changing the things a bit, and we're in a good track. Like CERT-In has also come up with S-bomb, AI bomb, even this entire bomb-related guideline for quantum also, and audit guideline for MSME and other sector. Then NCIPC is working on National Cyber Resilience Framework for critical sector entities, and also cybersecurity capability maturity model for sector-specific model. Like I have worked on the energy sector-specific model. So in most of the cases, it is seen that the regulations or the framework which we are working on in India is mostly aligned or as per the international standards, because mostly we try to harmonize the things with NERC, then 62443. So regulations are at par as of now, but there are some gaps. Like we are focusing on mostly power and energy as a single sector, as Sambit sir already highlighted, that there is a need of specific focus on renewable energy so that it can be tackled properly, because there are different attack vectors for renewable energy. Attack surface has changed. We are into the like area where it is remote is necessary. We are into the area where there is, along with consumer, there is prosumers also. So looking into all these aspects, I feel that though our guidelines are as per the international standards, but we need to be more specific towards the renewable energy. Coming to my second point, most of our guidelines are generally seen as a compliance driven. It would be better if we can gradually focus towards risk driven guidelines, where organizations focus towards their relevance of risk so that they can find out the applicability of the guidelines, because everything is not applicable to everyone. There are different business needs, there are different scenarios which is relevant for the organization. So based upon those, we can think about changing or modifying the things so that it changes from the compliance-driven world to the risk-driven. And coming to my third point, it is more towards, not towards the regulator, it is more towards the organization or the users. So mostly it has been observed from my experience that organizations generally feel compliance as a burden, because it is like expenditure is there, then other need of manpower is there. So you can think about one thing, like compliance you may miss. You may face some regulatory fine or this kind of thing that you can pay. You can overcome that. But what about your reputational risk? If something happens to your organization, it is your organization, it is your reputation. You cannot gain that reputation back. So based upon that fact, you should think about building your posture improvement, building the strategies so that compliance does not become a burden on you. You should automatically be compliant to the things. When you look at your relevant risk, your security posture, and you act upon, then because all the regulations and all the guidelines are mostly harmonized, they talk about more or less the same thing. If you do your strategy properly, if you follow all these steps, then you will automatically get compliant. So that is all from my side.
Great. So, essentially, if you're adopting the leading practices, then compliance is no longer a burden. It is a byproduct of, because you're doing everything right, you will automatically comply. Great. So, you also pointed out to another thing around skill, and I'd like to ask Sambit. Sambit, what is you're a notice security leader, you're dealing in this space, looking at skill availability. So what is your view on the availability of skilled resources, manpower essentially, to address the requirements of the renewable energy sector in specific and overall OT landscape, of course, but we are in RENEWSEC, so we'll talk about the renewable energy sector.
Yeah, definitely talk about the renewable energy sector. So if you look at the skills today, from us OT, renewable, OT security, renewable sector, it's quite a tongue twister actually. So the skills that are required are OT skills, mandatory. I mean, can't take away that. I've always said this earlier as well, that you can make a OT guy into a cyber specialist. You can't make a cyber guy into OT security specialist. That's not possible. The reverse direction is not possible. So you need OT skills. You need OT security skills. You need electrical energy skills. But at the same time, one more skill that is getting added up in the context of renewable is IoT security and cloud security. All these two weren't really required in the context of the conventional side. They are more required on the OT side. So merging all of this together is a challenge. There is no institution in the country today which is offering courses which encompasses all of it together. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it is true. You know, I've seen, you know, across institutes, across things, at a bachelor's level, none, at a master's level, some. So in a way, skill availability at a grounds level is not available. One will only have to build it up as time goes by. But the opportunity that is available for people to adopt these skills and move ahead is just too many. I mean, not only in India, but globally as well. So I would say today the resource availability is less. And these regulations that have come about only help accelerate the skill build-up. But technology is not a barrier. Skill is a barrier in terms of growth. So if we are able to bridge the skill gap, excellent it would be.
Thanks, Sambit. I guess all these stakeholders here would agree on the skill gap, but I think it is also up to the stakeholders here, right from the government to the private entities and consulting organizations, us to kind of help build this skill throughout India, and probably we need it in mass. It cannot be a one-on-one, small interact. It has to be a planned, coordinated effort. Thanks so much for that, Sambit. So, just coming back to Shailesh sir, we've had certain inputs around renewable energy, specific requirements, scale, everything. So, as as the nodal agency for the security of the renewable sector, and overall, with your experience also, can you elaborate what could be those specific challenges? Some of them which were discussed by the other panelists here on renewable energy sector. And how would we see addressing those specific renewable energy challenges? And as a group we can probably get some more ideas there.
That's a very good point for discuss and deliberate today. What are the various challenges which RE entities are facing here? Some of my panelist colleagues have told that like highly distributed digital infrastructure, such solar wind plants which are there in the geographically dispersed, having located in different remote areas and have very limited physical security and network controls. This is one of the major challenges, which my colleague told also. There is an increased IT and OT governance, which heavily depend on digital platforms, IoT devices, SCADA systems, remote monitoring, and cloud-based analytics, expanding the attack surface. There is third-party and vendor dependency. The multiple OEMs, EPC contractors, O&M vendor access system, remotely increasing risk due to supply chain attacks and credential misuse. There is a legacy systems. Many RE plants operate in a mixed generation control systems, some of which lack built-in security controls and patching mechanisms. Limited cyber security maturity at RE entities. The awareness in the RE entities is very low level. For that, recently many conferences are being conducted with the initiative of MOP also. MOP CERT Power is conducting many conferences recently in the past 6 months. So I requested most of you RE entities to attend this kind of program. That will give you the full kind of awareness about this level of cyber security compliances. The real-time data dependency, the grid integration, forecasting, scheduling, and market operations depend on real-time data, making RE systems sensitive to data manipulation ability attacks. The regulatory expansion, increasing regulatory oversight, CERT-RE responsibilities. RE entities now face multiple compliance maker expectations similar to critical infrastructure requiring rapid maturity enhancement. So these are the basic challenges. These challenges can be addressed in two ways. One is compliance, the regulation which is coming will be notified shortly. Secondly, the self kind of that driven activities. For this we have to do it and get the knowledge so that we can make cybersecurity compliance. This is from my side.
Thank you so much, sir, on that. Definitely your role as the nodal agency would, will encompass and become more and more important as the days goes by. And all of these challenges, probably all of us will be work together to kind of resolving it. That brings me, Krishna, sir, to another point. We've all talked about all the stakeholders. So how do you believe that public and private sector collaboration can enhance the cybersecurity resilience within the renewable energy sector? That's first part of the question. And how can, body like CERT-In or CSERT Power, what is the role that they envision for themselves in this entire ecosystem?
At certain, actually there are, we are doing all our cybersecurity activities through a number of different divisions. We actually came with some different initiatives. So some of the initiatives are, one is Cybersecurity Kendra. It is a public-private partnership basis it is working. It is actually around 200 ISPs, collaboration with 200 ISPs. We are getting some feeds, threat feeds and all. Say some of the organization maybe, it's actually entire Indian cyberspace we are actually scanning. So whenever some, say CSK is working like this, say yes, at the individual laptop, at that level, the CSK is actually working. So say one laptop is having some malware infection, some virus is there in the laptop. So it will anyway, it will scan, it will put some signature to the attacker controlled C2 device. So these signatures anyway, these it will pass through different ISPs only, different networks only. They will catch up this particular signature. This is from some, it will understand that this is an infection. So the ISPs will at the CSK they will scan the things. So they will pinpoint this, this is the IP and this is the timestamp. Then the CSK will send a alert to that particular ISP. ISP in turn locate the laptop owner based on the timestamp, and they will get an alert that your system is having some malware infection, some malicious traffic is emerging from your, sourcing from your laptop. So please clean your system. And that alert will have a link also having a antivirus, some free removal tool will be there. So that particular individual can go to the CSK website and download free removal tool and clean their system. This is how CSK is working. And it is a private-public, public-private participation. And currently in power sector around 230 organizations are onboarded. So that they will get, each and every organization onboarded will get almost daily. If their network is having some vulnerable service or open service, anything is going on, any malicious activity is going on, then they will get an alert. Your system, some of, at least one of your system may be having some infection. Please rectify this thing. That will be the alert. In second day also, if they are not rectifying, again next day also they will get the alert. So this is a private participation kind of thing. It is working. So I actually encourage the renewable new organization also maybe you can onboard into CSK so that you will get a daily alerts. Other than this one, there is some cyber threat intelligence platform. That platform is getting different types of, say, APT threats or any attacker campaigns. If they are getting that information, those who are onboarded, they will get a almost real-time alert from the CTI network, or otherwise, if it is important, some email alerts also sending to different regulators. In the case of, say, finance, the CSERT finance is working, they will get alerts. So CSERT fin again circulate to other people. In the case of power sector, if that particular some attacker campaigns targeting power sector, then the CTI will send a email to the CSERT Power, and maybe CSERT Power will in turn send to, maybe in this case, CERT-RE, that means SECI, and the other subsector CSERs also. So like this, they will get all the information. It's again, and other drills also, every regularly CERT-In is conducting drills so that organizations across the sectors, including power sector, they are actually participating. And when CSAT Power came into picture, they are also actually on board. We have trained them to conduct some training center. They are initially on board, now they are empowered, or they are actually capable to conduct their own level. They can conduct drills, maybe in collaboration with SECI as well. So like this, there are so many other things.
No, thank you. Thank you for those examples. Cyber Sacheta Kendra, of course, is an important aspect. And, it's good to know that, while there are regulations coming, but they are not just from a watchdog perspective, we are also supporting the organizations to improve their overall cybersecurity resilience.
CERT-In is not a regulatory organization. You can consider CERT-In as your friend. See, whenever some cyber attacks happen, certain employees actually, based on the requirement, based on the that severity, our scientists will fly into that particular organization, do the IR activities, eradicate all the things. All these things are happening across the sector, including power sector.
Great, because the similar thing, for example, I think 5 years back I was in the UK and I was in consultation and discussion with oil and gas entity there, and they mentioned that if there is anything, we don't need resources from anybody else, because it is CSERT in the UK which comes down and helps us entirely, takes over and guides us or what. Similar model over here also, very exciting to hear that. Thanks a lot for those, great insights. Purnendu sir, I just wanted to come to you. You had mentioned earlier, you talked about, and you touched a little bit on data privacy, right? And, data privacy with the new regulation, the DPDP in place, it will be exciting to understand your perspective about data privacy, specifically from the renewable energy sector. You were hinting at it. Let's also have that flavor in the discussion. What's your view there?
See, if you look at RE sector, so RE sector means I might be a bit radical in my thought, but it's very much over-regulated. There are so many regulators in RE sector. I'm not talking about cybersecurity. I'm talking about in general. There are CRC, CES, CTU, Grid India, and everyone makes the regulation and they will ask you to abide by it, right? And they will not handhold it. Like Krishna ji mentioned, that if there is an incident of cybersecurity, cyber threat, CERT-In will come into picture and they will do all kinds of remedial steps, which is very unique for a regulator kind of organization to do, right? That is not there. Now, there are so many regulations. You mentioned that CA is coming up with their regulation in January. They should have integrated that DPDP in their regulation. What they will do, they will write some data privacy kind of words somewhere within the regulation, and then they will try to tie in within that framework, right? So DPDP is something which is very much required, right? We need to have that enforcement of data, this sanctity of data. So basically, if you look at data, there are three things which are important. We need to have localization of data, right? Then you need to have data which is not misused, right? Personal privacy of data, which is very much required. Within DPDP, they have kept 3-4 things. They have restricted cross-border movement of data, right? You can't have your servers outside India. They have kept all these, I was looking at it, rooftop solar portal, EV charger, smart meters, all those things are coming under DPDP. So if you are, and you need to take permission from your user to share their data with someone, right? Otherwise, it will be a breach of DPDP, and you are liable for a great penalty. And you need to also have very strong security safeguards built in your system, right? Encryption, then API, all access control, logs, etc. That should be there. Now, again, if as a company I wanted to abide by this, there are certain challenges. As mentioned by Sambit, we are widely spaced. It's not localized plant that we are operating in. Our wind industry is sparse into 15, 20 kilometers, and one company is having establishment in at least 8, 9, 10 states, right? We have around 160 sites to integrate into that, right? And you can't have your, so that's number one. That's from geographical positioning point of view. Second is your dependence on OEMs, right? So if you are following DPDP as a company, but you need to ensure that all your OEM suppliers and contractors, they are also following these data. Suppose I'm a rooftop deployer, and I have empaneled a vendor to do this empanelment, and they are having access to the data of the consumer. I need to ensure that that guy is not misusing the data of that particular consumer, and it's not easy task, right? Means I have to take all kinds of commitment from that vendor, right? And this is something that I need to ensure that otherwise I will be in the violation of that data. Then, so breach notification, again, I tell that CES should integrate all those regulations within one. So the topic of that, the National Cybersecurity Framework integrated one regulation, right? Means if you have DPDP, you integrate it with the CA regulation. If you have any requirement from CERT, right? CERT is, they have asked the developers to make the comprehensive CCMP, right? Crisis management plan. So those requirements should be clubbed together, right? And one single document given to a developer, boss, this is your Gita, Bible, you have to abide by this. If you are deviating from this, you are liable for any kind of penalty. That's the wish of any developer side, right? But we don't want plethora of regulation. DPDP, CA regulation, that's fine. But so many agencies, I think Mighty will be having some other regulation which might come up. So we might be asked to abide by with so many regulations, and which might create a tough ask for us, right?
Yeah, so as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right.
So these are all right steps in the right direction, and pretty soon probably we'll see how it proceeds towards that. Organizations have not been able to do a unified compliance framework. So I'm sure for the country to do a unified regulatory framework.
Internally, we are getting into that path. We have already ensured our internal cybersecurity measures and so many trainings which are being conducted, or for all the employees within the organization. There should be cybersecurity awareness, any kind of phishing activity, any kind of malware. So employees should be conscious, right? It should not be derailed. We sometimes, we get email that my owner, he is asking 50,000 rupees from me, right? It's a phishing email which is coming to me. Then we check it, cross-check it with the IT department. Then we come to know that it's some phishing activity by some, So those kind of checks and balances are happening, but this has to be done at a much larger level, and organizations will have to be ready.
Of course.
Right.
As in the previous thing Atul mentioned, right? Cybersecurity is a journey. Don't take it as a mindset, that you've achieved cybersecurity. So to close it, final question, and we've talked about OEM but not touched it specifically. So Manazar, just a question to you. What are your suggestions to the OEMs who operate in the RE space, right? How can they work towards contributing to a cyber resilient India?
OEM are one of the critical stakeholder of this entire ecosystem. So what I would say is OEM should try to make cybersecurity as a secure by design concept, rather than thinking about just deployment and giving the patches, because that is not an good way to do business. Of course, you should build trust, then your business will automatically flow. Because if you make everything transparent, if you provide software bill of material properly, if you provide solutions which is secure by design, automatically people or other organization will have trust on your business. This is one thing. Another thing is you should not think security as a feature. You should take it as your responsibility also, because this is your country also. You should try to help the organization along with your doing business, to build a national level cyber resilience. So that is my suggestion to OEMs.
Thank you so much. I think we are almost at the end. Can I take one question? Any questions anybody wants to ask esteemed panelists? Yes, yes please. Can we have the mic?
Hey, good afternoon all. So I am from
Can I
Reliance.
take your name and
Yeah, my name is Ramesh Gavkar. I take care of solar PV infrastructure in Jamnagar. So related to this one, so normally legacy systems of OT, they are relying on hardware, so which is on-premises hardware. And now we are moving towards virtualization, means including PLC, like VPLC is coming, then the server hardware they are planning to put on cloud. So from cyber security perspective, any framework is there which incorporates these functionalities, and as soon as this goes over the cloud, that the AI for security also will come in picture. So how these things are taken care, because we are saying that now OT and IT will get merged. Already merged. Now IT is way ahead in cyber security, and we need to take up OT systems also into that path. So the cyber security framework we are talking about, so that should take care of these systems also. So
Yeah.
any framework that we
Krishna
are
sir,
thinking
you
of
want
that,
to address that question around basically what he's saying is, with everything moving into cloud, virtualization, coming into right at the PLC level as well, virtual PLC he referred to. So, how do the frameworks, or is there anything which specifically takes care of the security from within that? You may want to, yeah.
It is not there, but in the regulations, there is one point that all the data, sensitive data you are actually storing or handling in the cloud, that need to be encrypted, should be in the encrypted format, and it should be in India. That is the only regulation it is talking about. But other than that one, there are some cloud security, some guidelines and all already released. I think everything cannot be put into a single document that's called regulations. There are so many other guidelines and industry security practices. Each and every organization, based on their requirements, they have specific requirements. They have to go through different guidelines and implement those things for have a reasonable cybersecurity practices.
And just to add to that, this regulation also talks about risk assessment, right? So as you rightly said, one regulation or one framework cannot answer all your questions, but at the level that it answers is for you to do a risk assessment. And if these are the risks which have come through, there are already controls defined, etc., which are there, which you need to implement, whether it's for virtual, whether it's for cloud. Yes, architecturally, you'll have to think through how to do that, because there is a separate architecture when we talk about OT as compared to IT, but then solutions are available. Thank you so much for the question. Thank you so much for this audience to be here, and thank you so much to Renew to give us this opportunity. I hope we've concluded on time, and thank you so much for the panelists as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And now I request Mr. Akshay to please kindly felicitate the other panelists. Thank you very much. Now we'll begin with the Mr. Shailesh Kumar Gupta. Everyone, please give a big round of applause. Mr. Krishna Kumar. Mr. Purnendu Chaubey. Mr. Sambit Sinha. Mr. Sarkar. And to felicitate Mr. Akshay Tiku, I would like to invite on our stage Mr. Paprajuji to please kindly come on our stage and do the honors. Everyone, please give a big round of applause for such a great panel discussion. Thank you very much. Now I request all the panelists to please kindly come and for a group photo. Be here for a group photo. Thank you very much.